About to start sharing, so
Oh yeah, it says online, live on YouTube.
live, okay. And then I'm gonna send that out to everybody. Also, if you guys want to meet yourselves too,
Yeah.
while someone else is talking, just so there's not background noise. Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining in today. We're probably going to wait around another 5 more minutes to let other people start joining, and then we'll get started. Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining into our first virtual STEAM night. This STEAM night focuses more on the science aspects of STEAM, and so essentially what these virtual STEAM nights are, they're meant to provide all of you guys with the opportunity to learn more about majors and minors and opportunities within various areas of STEAM. So today we have three presenters for you guys to listen to, and they'll talk a little bit about their major in college as well as some of their college experiences within STEAM. And so you can also follow us on our social media handles to learn more about upcoming STEAM nights. We have an upcoming STEAM night next week, which will focus around technology, as well as an engineering, art, and mathematics STEAM night. So you can go ahead and follow us on Instagram or Twitter to keep up with all the updates on our upcoming events. And lastly, here are our three presenters. First, we have Sophie, who's a junior at the University of Pennsylvania. She is currently majoring in biology and minoring in chemistry. Our second presenter tonight is Anjali, and she is currently a junior at the University of Southern California. She majored in health and human services sciences, and she is currently going to be getting her master's in gerontology. Lastly, we have Divya, who's a sophomore at the University of Southern California, and she will be talking about her major in health promotion and disease prevention, as well as her minor in business administration. So without further ado, here is Sophie to talk more about her college journey.
Hi, okay, can everyone hear me? I'm gonna talk about my major and what I've been studying and the research that I've been doing. Trying to share my screen. Okay, 1 second, let me set up a PowerPoint. Okay, so I wanna talk to you about So I'm studying biology and I'm minoring in chemistry. So I want to talk to you about molecular biology and just pursuing interdisciplinary science and kind of the idea of not getting stuck to one science when you get to college. So when I got to college, I had this expectation. I loved biology in high school, wrote my entire Common App, all my essays about biology and genetics. I wanted to be a doctor. That's pretty much all I knew. And the other sciences didn't interest me. I didn't really care. I had honestly no interest in chemistry. The only reason I took chemistry was because I knew it needed it for the biology major. And somehow within 2 semesters of my freshman year, I went from hating general chemistry to loving it. And things really shifted. I started realizing you can't go into college with these preconceived ideas of what you're going to do when you get there, what you love and what you don't. You honestly don't really know what you're going to love until you try it out. And testing things out in college is like the by far the most important thing, the thing that I'm so grateful for that you have in like a liberal arts education and getting to test things out for yourself. So basically I entered my sophomore year and I found a passion. I took this class, cell biology. Kind of, I am only 21, but it felt like it changed my life. It was the most motivating class I've ever taken. And what's key to this, which you realize in college, is that the professor makes or breaks the class. So I kind of gave this picture of, it's called a signaling cascade. It looks extremely complicated and it kind of is one of the things we learn in this class, and it kind of is emblematic of how complicated and complex the subject material was, how much studying I had to do, how much review, how much understanding. It's not memorization, it really was just understanding complex ideas and putting things together. And I loved that class, and it was because the professor made it so motivating, made learning the material so exciting, that I really felt like I was kind of progressing in my scientific education. So I love this class so much. I went up to the professor one day and I said, I know you're teaching an advanced class, advanced cell biology next semester, and I want to take it. And he told me that I was too young. I didn't have any lab experience. He didn't recommend me taking it. I hadn't had anywhere near enough experience reading research papers. I wasn't ready to read the advanced research papers that his class taught. And instead of listening to him, I enrolled in the class. And as the semester drew on, people dropped it because it was so much work and the reading of the papers was so extensive. And I just pushed myself further because I was so in love with the material and I loved reading about it and I loved kind of the analysis and just what reading scientific research papers meant for me. It was something new that I'd never experienced before that I finally kind of figured out something I was good at. So I love this class so much. And below another picture is just kind of an example of what the heading of his research paper looked like. We were studying immunosuppression. So we're studying cancer research, and a budding field of cancer research is immunotherapy. So that was something that I was studying that I really, really started to love. And I told him during this class, I was like, this has been so exciting to me. I want to be a cell biologist. I basically told him that I wanted to be him in 30 years. I wanted to get a PhD. I wanted to pursue this. I was 20 and I had a path and I knew exactly what I wanted to do because cell biology was so exciting to me. And some of the best advice he ever gave me was he told me, don't get married to one thing. You're in your early years of college still, keep trying new things, keep figuring things out. So I enrolled to work in his lab, and I now work in his lab in cell biology, but I didn't stop there, and I'm not just done and figured out that I was going to do cell biology. So his advice really pushed me to continue trying new things, even though I found something that I really loved. So the next thing that I kind of got to find through STEM, through college, that I'm really happy about is computer science. And kind of the idea about interdisciplinary science that I think is really interesting is that sometimes things fit together and sometimes they don't. There are some interdisciplinary sciences that are like biophysics, integrating all these different types of sciences into one. And sometimes it's really cool to figure out that you're good at a lot of different sciences and that they can come together. And sometimes that really doesn't matter. You can just love science in different ways and you can love different materials. You don't have to have everything fit and everything be complete and you be this complete scientific student. So I kind of just liked coding for its own thing. I got really excited by it. It was really cool to see that I could produce something and create something, and that felt almost to the side of biology. But what was really, really exciting was that it's not. Biology and computer science can integrate, and I actually got to have experience seeing the overlap. So over the summer, after my sophomore year, I did research at Weill Cornell, which is a big hospital in New York City, and I worked in a lab that uses computational methods, so uses computer programming to analyze genetic data. And this is kind of the future of how we're going to do genetic analysis, because in your genome, we have millions and millions and billions of base pairs of DNA to analyze, and this makes up who we are. It's the reason behind the diseases that we have, our preconditions. So studying the base pairs that make up our cells, that make up our DNA, is super important, and doing all this computational analysis to be able to look at all this billions of data points is kind of a very new emerging field. So this was just so exciting to me because I finally realized that I could find a path that intersected these sciences, and I could also not. I could continue pursuing computer science and get something completely out of the realm of biology, or I could find something that combined chemistry, biology, and computer science, which does exist. And it was just really motivating for me to realize that, you don't pick what you want to do and you can keep learning. And research itself is an aspect that's so important to undergraduate science, I think, because by doing research, you get to actually experience the science itself. You're not just learning in a class, but you're figuring out if you like the material and you're figuring out if you're good at it and if you know how to do it and you're a fast learner. So research, both, the computational research that I did at Cornell in this genetics lab versus the kind of pure cell biology research that I did with my professor, who I really love at school. Those are two very different things, and both of them gave me hands-on experience into what kind of different types of sciences look like, all still related to biology, which was overall my overarching first love. So that's my takeaway. Research is so important. And try new things, take classes even if you aren't 100% sure that it's up your alley. You don't have to know that you're going to be a geneticist when you're 18 and then go to college and do it. You keep trying new things and you learn so much about yourself just by doing that. And the other thing is, don't get so intimidated by the giant lectures that you start out with freshman year. Remember, I went to an all-girls school that had 50 girls in my graduating class. And then I got to college and my general bio lecture was probably 200 people in a lecture hall, and it was terrifying. But when you grow through college, you get to take those small classes. You get to make the one-on-one connection with your professors, and you get to really learn from your mentors and your peers in those kind of small settings. So to appreciate the good and bad of the giant lectures, but also really try and take advantage of the small classes when you get the chance. And yeah, that's pretty much everything I had to say. But if anyone had any questions, I don't know if we're doing a Q&A session.
Yeah, so if you guys have any questions, you can submit them in the live chat. I did see there was one question that asked, did you have to do coding?
No, absolutely not. I was kind of pushed into it by myself because I have this general idea that if someone tells me something's hard, then I want to do it to prove them wrong. And everyone said coding was one of the harder things at Penn, one of the harder subjects, and I just wanted to try it. And I really just took it on a whim because I had the free time and it fit my course load. So I took a coding class and I was gonna drop it halfway through because it got really hard and I didn't have the time anymore. But I stuck through it, and it was like a tipping point when I chose to stick with it, and that's when everything came together. Sometimes things just hit you when it comes together at once. And I'm really happy that I'm really proud of myself that I stuck through it and I learned something entirely new. And it has huge implications for what I can do in my future now because I continue to take coding classes and coding is a huge part of the future. So I'm pre-med. I might go to med school and never code in my life, but I also might work in software engineering at a biotech company instead. Like there's so many different things that I can do. So that was like one of the best moves that I could have made, I think.
All right, awesome. We'll move on to the next presenter. And then if you guys have any other questions, we'll come back to the first presentation as well. But here I'm gonna hand it over to Anjali, who will talk more about her experiences.
Okay, sure. All right, hopefully everyone can see my screen. Hi, I'm Anjali, and I am a junior at USC. So I'm gonna tell you guys about gerontology, which is a field of science which is a little bit less well known. It's the study of aging. So first, a little bit about myself. I'm a junior at USC, a big football school. This is me at front row at one of our football games, one of my favorite college memories. And I actually was able to take summer courses and finish all of my college classes in 3 years. And so next year, during my 4th year, I am doing a master's in gerontology. And so I am also pre-med. I'm actually applying to medical school in a month. So if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer. Here are some other things that I've been involved with. So like Sophie, I worked in a lab too. I worked in a molecular biology lab. So my lab looked at what changes happen on the cellular level when people get older. So what happens in terms of like protein level expressions, et cetera. So we looked at that in Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's disease. I also interned at a nonprofit, and so I loved it. I am a very big science person, but I love the humanities as well. And you don't have to pick. You can pretty much pursue any of your interests in college, and there is so many more than you could ever even think of, which I think is the best part. I also was a teaching assistant for general chemistry, so I had to teach in front of a lecture of 200 300 students. And that took a lot of courage for me. And it was really hard the first time, but it gets a lot easier. I also volunteer at a medical clinic, and I'm a member of a community service organization. Actually, the next presenter after me is a friend of mine, Divya, and we're in the same community service organization. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat or however you submit them to Aga. So I'm going to do a quick little true false quiz about aging. So one of the common misconceptions is that most old people get dementia, but this is false. Dementia is when your memory or other cognitive functions start to decline, but in actuality, only about 10 to 20% of people over 65 actually get dementia. And so the conception that, oh, old people always misplace their keys or don't remember things, that's not really true. That's kind of a stereotype that gets perpetuated a lot. Also, another misconception is that all old people are the same. So they all like wear the same clothes and are hunchback and have wrinkly skin, but that is false. if you think about it, older people have experienced so many different things in their life. So if you think about a bunch of kindergartners, they all kind of have the same interests. They like playing on the playground, they go to classes, etc. And then every year that your life progresses, there's different pathways you can explore, different life experiences that change you as a person. So because old people have lived the longest, they actually are the most heterogeneous, they have the most diversity. Another thing, Another thing is that the average age in the US population is increasing. So people are living longer thanks to medical and technological advances, and also people are having fewer children, which means the average age of the population is increasing. So as we grow up, as we live to see our 20s, 30s, 40s, there will be a lot more older people in society, which dictate how policy changes, how hospital procedures change. And so as you can see, that part of aging is quite multidisciplinary. And then also, what's true is in the upcoming decades, the older population will become more racially diverse. You can look at all the graphs published by the census or the CDC, but the population of the United States is becoming more and more racially diverse. So the groups that are considered like ethnic minorities are now going to be in the majority, which means that it also changes how aging looks in this country. And because there are more old people, that means we need more jobs to help old people. So the US will need more people to work jobs related to aging. And so that's not just working in a nursing home, but that is about innovative ways. So there's specific gyms for just older people, or scientists that study aging, that study cures for diseases, management, being a social worker. There are so many different things that you can work in the field of aging. And so this is what I want to talk about, gerontology. And some of you are probably wondering, like, did she just go to college to study old people? No, that's not exactly what happened. I knew I wanted to be a doctor because in high school, I loved my bio class and I loved my chem class. And I thought, this is what I want to do in college, so might as well become a doctor and study it more. But I actually was raised by my grandparents, and I didn't realize how much I missed them until I went to college. My grandparents are from India, so ethnically I'm Indian, but they place a huge emphasis on respecting their elders. And that was something that I didn't see across a lot of people. And I really liked studying of aging. And it has a combination of two things that I like. So yes, this is science night, and this is me working in my biology lab. I'm pipetting some reagents here. And this is more of a humanities aspect as well. So gerontology is the study of aging. So how people change, how populations change, sociology, but also the science part. And the humanities part is probably my favorite part, actually. So this is me at a senior home. I'm actually president of this organization called Glamour Gals, where we go to senior homes and we talk to the men and women living there, and we paint their nails. And it's super fun because they get to interact with college students. We get to form friendships between generations, so form intergenerational friendships. I've been doing this throughout my time in college. It's probably the favorite thing that I do. And it is fantastic. And so this is a great way to be involved in your community. And this is really important because senior loneliness is actually a huge issue. And I know that everyone gets lonely from time to time, but people who are older often have physical limitations. So it's hard for them to leave their house, go to a public meeting place, etc. Or it's just they have other illnesses. And so it's harder for older people. And senior loneliness is actually a huge problem. So all other things equally, seniors who are considered lonely have a 26% greater chance of mortality, which is really scary. And that's why I love this so much, because science, yes, is important and medicine is important, but you have to remember that you're not just studying cells, you're studying the people who have cells in them. And as a person, you have to look at it holistically, which is why I love gerontology so much, because for me, it's the intersection of science and humanities. And so, yeah, that's my presentation. If you have any questions, please let me know. One other thing I just wanted to go back and say that Sophie mentioned was I am a teaching assistant for general chemistry. So if you want to be a doctor or some engineers, when you go to college, you have to take intro level chemistry. And so I took it as a freshman and I was so intimidated. I knew it was going to be a hard class. I didn't know how grade curves work, but I just studied a lot and I loved chemistry. And now 2 years later, I'm a teaching assistant for that class. So I make worksheets and quiz my students on it. I respond to their questions over email and I do exam reviews for it. So I also love chemistry. So yeah, the point of my presentation is I wanted to explain that you can love science, but you can also love humanities as well. And I think that has been one of the most formative parts of my college experience, was realizing that you can do both. So yeah, please let me know if you have any questions about anything that I said.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So it looks like we had a couple questions, just general questions that kind of popped in while you were talking. The first one I think can be answered by any of you guys, but the first one is, will attending community college instead of school affect my chances of getting into medical school?
So I'm not a medical school director, but community college, I feel like it's so stigmatized for no reason. Community college is a great way to save money, especially for those first 2 years. So you can take your intro level science classes there. I'm not quite sure what it looks like for them, but if you do well in your courses, no matter where you are, I think they'll understand that. And one of the main things that I do know about medical school application is they like to see an upward trajectory. So let's say you take a class your freshman year and you don't do that well, but you learn how to study, you put in more effort, and by the time you're a sophomore, junior, your grades start increasing. They see that as a positive thing. And one thing I'll say about like pre-med is it's not, I mean, it is about how smart you are, but it's about how hard you work. And the biggest thing, if you want to be a doctor or go into medicine or some sort of health profession, is just perseverance. And so if you need to go to community college, I don't think that would be a problem at all. In fact, one of my cousins is going to community college, and it's a really great option financially. And I think more and more people are seeing that and not stigmatizing it so much.
Awesome, thank you. The next question is, what extra classes could be of benefit during undergrad to increase the chances?
Well, extra classes, you can take whatever you want. The way applying to medical school works is you have to take the core classes. So you have to take chemistry, organic chemistry, biology, biochemistry, physics, and then maybe some math. And so every school has the different course numbers for it. So you just have to get those classes out of the way, those prereqs, and then you can take whatever you want. And the best part is you can take classes that are not science related. And so Gero, I've taken a lot of humanities classes, sociology classes, just because I'm interested in it. In fact, I took a nonprofits class and I loved it. One of my good friends who's going to medical school in the fall, she was a music minor. And so the other classes are actually whatever makes you happy, whatever you're interested in, and it'll make you a more interesting candidate when you apply. So you just have to take the regular science classes, and then anything else you want to take, you should definitely take. It's okay to have more than one interest. In fact, it's probably encouraged.
Great. The next question is, you said you applied to a specific program in college, and I was wondering if you think that applying to programs rather than undecided is beneficial to the admissions process.
Okay, I don't know a ton about admissions for college because I know a lot of that stuff is kept under wraps. But I think what they want is just to see an eagerness to learn. So if there's something you're really interested in, let's say it's like the environment. So one of my best friends is an environmental engineer, and she wants to work with like water companies to have like structures that deliver water in a friendly way. You can convey that, but it's totally fine. You are young, you're a teenager. If you don't know what you want to do, just say that you have interest in XYZ and explain why you want to learn more about it, why it's interesting to you, what you have done already to learn about it. But I don't think undecided should hinder you so much as long as you convey why you want to go to that college and what you want to do there. But don't force an interest if you don't have it. I think there's a statistic like half of the college or a third of the college students at USC have changed their major or like added a minor or something. And so while you're in college, it's a process of discovery and learning more about yourself. And so you're so young right now, you really don't have to make all the choices. Also, it's okay if you declare biology on your apps and talk all about it, but you get there and realize you hate bio, but you really love psychology and you want to be a psychologist when you grow up. That's totally fine. So I think just write about whatever you're genuinely interested in. And if you're not decided, then you can say you're not decided, but maybe list a few things that you would consider in the future. But I don't know about that's what I would do. I don't know specifically if writing undecided hurts you or not, because I don't know much about I mean, I applied to college, but I feel like a lot of that stuff is secret. So I don't really know what each individual college thinks about that.
Great. And the last question is, does dementia affect the lifespan of elderly people?
That's really interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, if you have dementia, dementia is actually a big umbrella category. So that's like saying knee injury. It could be from so many different things. So the most common form of dementia, which I think people are aware of, is Alzheimer's, but there's also this one called Lewy body dementia, Parkinson's, vascular dementia. If someone has a stroke and blood doesn't get to their brain, then brain cells die and dementia can progress that way. So if you have any of these diseases associated, like under the umbrella term of dementia, yes, that does ultimately affect your lifespan. So yes, it does, but dementia, again, isn't common. It's definitely way less than half of older people have it. So about like 20% do.
All right, great. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to our next speaker, Divya, who is going to be talking a little bit more about her major and minor and college experiences.
Okay, let me just share my screen here. Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Divya and I'm originally from Portland, Oregon. And I want to talk before I get into my college experience a little bit about my high school experience, since that's where you all are now. So I was always interested in science, but not really the health side of things. I grew up doing robotics at school, which is really what got me introduced to science, but I wasn't really loving all the math or the programming. And so later in high school, I got a job as an office assistant in a hospital and I loved it. So I got to shadow this doctor and see the impact that he had on his patients, and it was really special. And beyond that, I saw the struggles that these patients were facing being from rural areas of Oregon and not having a specialized cancer hospital near them. So that really got me interested in health overall and not just as a function of biology, which is something that you'll hear me touch on a lot. And I also saw that this doctor was doing research as well as seeing patients. And I was kind of surprised because I didn't really realize that that was possible. So yes, I traded in my raincoat for a pair of sunglasses as I headed to USC. So I'm currently a sophomore studying health promotion and disease prevention, which is basically public health. It's a pretty fancy way of saying public health at USC here in Los Angeles. And I'm also minoring in business administration. So before I jump into the whole spiel about my major, I want to talk a little bit about my minor. So I'm minoring in business administration, and I was really torn when I was applying to college because I loved some of the aspects of business. I did DECA in high school, which if you don't know what that is, it's basically like a casing competition where you go in and you get a scenario about a business and then you kind of come up with a plan and tackle that business's problems within like a short 10-minute presentation. And I really loved those things. So I was kind of torn when I was applying to college, trying to figure out what to major in, which I'm sure a lot of you are going through as well. But I ultimately settled on health, but I didn't want that to be the only thing I did. So I really made sure that I still had this interest in business. So I wanted to minor in it. And I'm really happy that I was able to do that. So yes, like everyone has said, do not limit yourself in your interests. You can pursue a lot of things in college, and a lot of times your coursework will enable you to do that. So I can also answer questions about business, or minoring in something completely unrelated to science too. So after college, I hope to go to medical school. So I am pre-med. I actually started off as a human bio major, but I changed my major because it sounds really stupid, but I realized that bio is a lot of hard science, and that wasn't really something that I was looking for. I do like science is really important and you definitely need it for applying to medical school. But a lot of the upper division classes were very bio, very heavy science. And I was kind of more interested in health in general and looking at populations and different health trends. So I decided to change to health promotion because I felt like it more aligned with my interests as my interests evolved while I was at school. So I changed my major the second semester of my freshman year. So, what is health promotion and disease prevention? So, my major is really interdisciplinary. It draws from psychology, sociology, biology, and more to explore health and disease. So, some of the topics that we cover in detail include things like environmental health, substance abuse, cultural diversity, public health programs, nutrition and fitness, healthcare in minority populations, and more. And the goal of the major is really to understand that health is not one dimensional and there are many other things that impact your health outside of the doctor's office. And this major is really good for students who have an interest in research, which I will get into a little bit later. And especially right now with the ongoing situation with COVID, epidemiology is a big part of this major too. So my major has some core science requirements. Oh, and I really felt like this diagram kind of encompassed my major. It's the socio-cultural model of health, which just shows how many different things impact, your health. So my major has a bunch of core science requirements as well as public health requirements and then upper division public health classes. So a lot of these general science classes are required to apply to med school and they're part of my major, which is really nice. So things like general biology, general chemistry, organic chemistry, introduction to psychology, calculus. These are all really good things and they're still incorporated in my major. So I'm still able to get those basic sciences in. So the classes relate to health promotion or where we really learn to look at healthcare as a whole, rather than just thinking about it as a function of biology. So like I was saying, there's a lot of other aspects to healthcare, like your mental and emotional well-being and your social support networks, which makes huge impacts in overall wellness, which we learn about through plenty of studies. And like I was mentioning earlier, a lot of other models to just really understand what constitutes health and what really makes it up. So okay, yeah, like I have here listed some of the classes that are offered within my major, things like adolescent health, environmental health, maternal health. We have other classes on substance abuse, AIDS, just a bunch of different things under the whole umbrella of health. And you get to learn about each one a little bit more after you learn about how to analyze these things through models. So another thing I really like about my major is that we've learned a lot about things in the context of the city that we're in, which is Los Angeles. So for example, when we learn about how researchers construct these programs to improve health in the community, we got to hear from some of the researchers behind these projects. So for example, this was a project done to get increased rates of HPV screening among Spanish-speaking populations in Los Angeles. So this was a campaign called Es Tiempo, and they really looked at branding it through, I think it's a tree that blooms around like once a year. So they tied that to the annual message of you should get screened for HPV each year and cervical cancer. So, that was really cool to hear from that researcher about how they really put these things that we're learning into practice. And as I'm going on and on, I'm starting to talk a lot about research. So my major also has a research requirement. So here at USC, I'm involved with the neuroendocrinology of social ties lab, the NEST lab, where we're currently doing data collection for the hormones across the transition to child rearing study, so the HATCH study. And we're basically sampling a variety of hormones during pregnancy and through childbirth. And then 6 months after they have the baby, they'll come in again to get, just like we take their saliva samples and their blood samples and measure their cortisol levels. And then we'll also do interviews with them before they have the baby. And then a couple days after they've had the baby in the hospital. And then finally 6 months after they've had the baby. So we're really looking at both the psychological and biological underpinnings of having a child. And one thing I really like about our lab is that we're also studying the experiences of fathers. A lot of this research is really focused on mothers, and I'm really happy that we're also looking at how child rearing has effects on fathers as well. And this has been really special because I've gotten to hear from like couples about their birth experience, which is something that's so intimate and so special, and just to hear them share it. And then also like it's really interesting to see just the amount of things that can affect what it's like to have a child. And so now, I mean, a lot of our stuff has been transitioned online, and so we're hoping to understand how currently like COVID is impacting what it's like to have a child. But yeah, my major requires us to be involved with some sort of research, which is really nice because I'm basically getting credit for pursuing research in an area that I'm really interested in. And I think that's really integral to public health. And I think that's something you'll see in a lot of public health programs because a lot of it is very research based. So yeah, that's all I have for you. If you have any questions about pre-med or research, I would be happy to answer them.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It looks like we have a couple questions that popped in. The first one is an office assistant similar to a medical scribe?
So there's differences between a medical scribe and an office assistant. So I was in high school. I don't think I had any relevant experience to becoming a medical scribe. So my job was basically, this doctor was pretty famous in the sense that he was a really big specialist for this type of cancer. So we were getting patients from all over the country, which also means that we were getting medical records from all over the country. So it was basically my job to go through them, prepare them, make sure they were all in order for the next clinic visit that was coming up, and then get them prepared to put into our online records. Whereas a scribe, what you would be doing is you would be shadowing this doctor more closely and then documenting all of their encounters as they're happening into your electronic health record. And you would probably need to have more qualifications to become a medical scribe. And some medical scribes are even required to undergo training programs.
Thank you. And the next question is changing your major hard?
So I was really fortunate in the sense that at USC, it's not that difficult depending on what you're changing into. So I switched from the College of like Arts and Sciences to this major is actually housed within the medical school. So that wasn't too difficult. I know that if you're changing with like, at least I can only speak to what it's like at USC. So changing within your school. So like if you wanted to change from anything like in the engineering school to another type of engineering, that's like really easy. But if you wanted to change to like the film school, which has like a really, really low acceptance rate, like you're going to have to do an internal transfer process. So it really depends on the institution. But I would say if the majors are pretty similar, it's not going to be too big of a problem. But again, it really depends on the school that you're attending.
Great. So one question that I have for just a general question for all of you guys is what is one piece of advice that you want to give these high school students right now for what they should be doing in order to prepare for college?
Sorry. One thing I'll say is we are literally in the middle of a global pandemic, and that has never happened before, especially in our lifetimes. So if you are stressed and don't want to think about like huge, like, what am I going to do with my life questions, it's totally fine to just relax. Like one thing, I have a lot of younger cousins, and one thing that I told them is just to read books or read articles online, like try figure out what you're interested in. But college is not, I know it seems really scary and I was super scared at the time, but it's not a scary process, and it's so totally fine to change your mind. And so like, yes, try find something you're interested in, but be open-minded. A lot of colleges make you take GEs or like general education courses. So you have to take like one science and humanity, or one class in humanities, one in arts, one in um like reading or writing. And so that way you've kind of sampled everything and you can figure out if there's something you like more. So my piece of advice would just be like, read as much as you can. There's so many great ways to rent public, like books from your public library online, or just news articles, and try to figure out what you're interested in, but don't put too much stress on yourself because this is already a very stressful time to be in.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that Anjali said. Don't beat yourself up. It's really unexpected situation. Nobody's ever really dealt with something like that, especially applying to college. Um, and I would say don't be afraid of not knowing exactly what you're interested in. Like it's always good to try to figure that out, but applying undecided is super common at a lot of like a lot of universities say that's their like number one major coming in. Um, it's okay to not know because college will give you the time to explore that. And as long as you keep an open mind, I think you'll be okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It doesn't look like anybody else has any other questions. So is there anything else that you guys want to add before we wrap up?
I think that's it. Just, yeah, to reiterate, don't be stressed. Like college is
stay
honestly supposed
healthy.
to be the most fun time ever. So just enjoy it. And then also there is literally, you could take gap years. Like Malia Obama did that. Like she took a year off between college and high school. Like one of my favorite professors did. Or you could go to community college first and transfer. That's a great way to save money. So there are so many different routes of college. So don't stress if you don't apply like straight out of high school or you change your mind or even transfer. A lot of schools take a ton of transfer kids. So USC takes a ton of transfer students. So there's so many different options about it. You don't have to be like so set on a path when you go. So
Yeah, and I would also say that a lot of universities are being really understanding right now with things like test scores, application dates. So I'm sure like as the weeks and months go on, you'll start to hear more communication about, just having their policies be a little bit more flex.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. And just so all of you know, our next STEAM night will be next Thursday, May 7th at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, just like right now. And if you have any other questions that pop up after this session, you can go ahead and send us an email at info@literacy-initiative.org, and we'll be sure to forward it on to one of these presenters. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we hope you have a great rest of your night.